how were you guys how were your parents as far as like when this was a strategy you guys thought you would look more into and you started talking about, were parents skeptical at all? Were they pretty, I mean, it sounds like you guys have parents who understand entrepreneurship more, and really, pushing towards the stock market and investing already, but were they skeptical about real estate and whether this was a good option?
They were definitely a little skeptical. They didn't believe you could get as much for rent as you could, so they always thought like the price of the house wouldn't warrant it because the rent would be way too low. And it took till we got several tenants, so they really were on board with, wow, I can't believe people are actually paying that much rent. They're like, how are people going to afford to ever buy houses if they go and start paying rent somewhere else, and different things like that. So and for you, Bill?
Yeah, I talked about it with my dad a fair bit, and basically just wrote out numbers for him and got him to kind of critique me and see if he could find holes in it. And he couldn't really, but at the same time, he's always been the kind of person who, if it's a mistake, he just looks at it as the cost is basically the cost of the tuition. You're going to learn that lesson and do it better the next time. And no, I think he was quite supportive, but he'd always done more equity investing with his kind of line of thought. He's always owned properties as well. Okay. And he actually, when I was quite young, I guess 10 or 11, we bought kind of the neighbor's house, and it was a rental property. Okay. It actually didn't necessarily have much bearing on us getting into real estate in that kind of area. I actually didn't really even think about it until right now.
You just realized
now
you just realized your dad was a landlord.
Yeah, no, I actually just did.
That's funny.
But he didn't do it for the reason to become a landlord. He did it because the neighbor was losing their property for tax evasion, and he actually made a deal with the neighbor where he would buy the property and the neighbor would buy it back from him, and then it kind of like a legal deal with everything, and it sort of fell through.
all the upfront paperwork.
So he became didn't plan to be a landlord, but he ended up as a landlord. So.
Oh, there you go. Isn't that funny? And so what you were saying, Daniel, is like with your parents being like, well, if people are going to pay that rent, how are they going to buy a house? This is the crux of the whole situation. I have a 4-year-old. She's not going to be able to buy a house when she's old enough, right? I mean, maybe if she's this great orthopedic surgeon doing all this great stuff and making a ton of cash or whatever else it is. But even in our world, the thought of being employed by someone else is less and less appealing all the time. The idea of being an entrepreneur is much more appealing because you do have more control over the income that you make. But she's not going to be able to buy a house. I don't think so. I do think that's the way we're headed, probably. Because that gap between what the average salary is and what the home prices are is they're not increasing at the same rate, right? That gap is widening. And the gap between the people who own and the people who rent is definitely widening. And I think it's just that common saying that, buy land, they're not making any more of it, right? It's the truth. And that's why it's one of the most stable investments, because year over year, if it's a long-term hold, you're inevitably going to make money because that land is just getting eaten up and there's going to be a limit to that as well.